Welcome to Ragtops and Roadsters here in Percy, Pennsylvania. It's a nice summer evening. Ryan's doing the wide shot in front of the shop here. For those who don't know about us, you can find us at ragtops.com. We're starting out here this evening as we have a couple cars we just want to show to you that are listed on our website. We seem to be getting a lot of folks interested in selling their cars and maybe downsizing or relocating to smaller accommodations, and we have three nice cars we wanted to show you. And I'm going to start off with this MGB GT. Hold on a second. Bill? Bill's going to pop the bonnet on this car for us. This is a 1969 MGB GT, and it's very special that it has the Webasto sunroof, a 5-speed gearbox, a T9 5-speed, and under the bonnet is not your typical MGB engine. Now, to some, this might be blasphemy, but this is a very nice running car, a 3.4-liter Chevrolet powered with, I believe, a T9 5-speed gearbox, and I've driven it, and it's a nice ride. It's well sorted, and the interior is very nicely appointed with modern-day gauges and seats with actual lumbar support and bolsters. And Ryan will come around here with the camera. And in my mind, this is a fantastic little touring car that's available for sale on our website. And we'll do our interior shot. And it's a great little ride. I think that this would be a vintage air to this car would be a wonderful addition, but with the sunroof, it's very nice and very tolerable as it is right now. So this is, again, available on our website. Take a quick look. The owner's looking to relocate. It's a fully sorted car. We've cared for this car for 4 or 5 years, and I have to say the current owner is an A client, which means every time we bring a situation to him, he says, fix it. Let's fix it right. So, and it's not that old a restoration. I'm going to say maybe 6-7 years. And it's been well kept after, and it's ready to run. Moving on, and our Wi-Fi can be a little choppy out here, so I have to stay by one of our windows. It's a beautiful red 1966 MGB. Black interior, red piping. This car is as good underneath as it looks like it is on top. It was restored by a gentleman in Canada probably 10 years ago and kept up very well. Another A client that has always said, let's fix it right. If it needs anything, hydraulics have been looked after, and this is on our website as well. It's an overdrive car. It's all that you'd want in an early MGB. Full top tonneau, everything you can think about, and it's ready to go, turnkey. Both of these two cars are turnkey, absolutely ready to run. Moving on, I'm going to come over here by one of our windows so we don't lose our Wi-Fi. And here we go. A 1961 MGA. Again, this was a no expense spared restoration. Done probably 6-7 years ago. As I said, as clean on the bottom as it is on top. Beautifully prepared. Concours quality. Everything is done with perfection. And again, the owner is downsizing, moving into a smaller house, and it's a kind of a reluctant sale, but he knows that it's not going to fit his new lifestyle, and he's wants to put it in the hands of someone who's going to use it and drive it and enjoy it. Full top, tools, tonneau, everything you need. So those are just 3 MGs we have. We find a lot of our clients have cars that they're looking for new homes. And so we just thought we'd feature these and bring these out here tonight so you can take a look at them and see if it sparks any interest in anyone out there in the world of MG. So we're going to go to our shop now and walk up our ramp. And Ryan's going to pan over as we come in. And welcome to our shop. I want to introduce Bill Boers. Bill is our assistant shop manager here and a longtime MG enthusiast and driver. And Bill's going to talk about some of these cars here. We want to talk about this MGTD that just came in from an estate. And Bill's going to talk a little bit about that. Then we'll give you a tour of some of the other shops. Bill and I are going to, pass the mic back and forth, if you will. So, Mike, tell us about this TD.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. As Dave said, this car just came in. We just pulled it up the ramps a couple hours ago. And I said we pulled it up the ramps because the car doesn't run. It's a car that was restored about 20 years ago, driven about 500 miles, and then put away and hadn't been driven in the past 18 or 19 years. As happens quite often, we get cars like this that come in and have been sitting for a long time. You can see this car is nice and clean, nice and straight. Looks like it was a nice refurbishment to it. So it's going to need a little bit of work. It doesn't run. It's got no brakes, but it is a very pretty car, a nice color combination. And so hopefully we can get it sorted out for the customer and get it running well for them. Dave, if you want to, you pull that bonnet up. There's an interesting feature to this, which when we get to our Q&A session, I'm going to throw this in as a question from me to you guys. When Ryan comes around to show the engine, you'll notice the wire loom on the ignition wires is something that I don't think I've ever seen on these cars. And I'd like to get some input from you fellas with T-Series experience as to whether it's something that you're familiar with.
So that's interesting. Sure.
Yeah. So we're gonna do a full inspection on this car, get the engine running, go over the brakes, and service the car so it's safe and reliable to drive, and get it back to the owner, who hopefully can get a lot of good miles out of it. Something I do like about this car, it's got a lot of original equipment. The amber fog lights on the front look like they are definitely vintage to 1953. A couple other things on the car just appear to be really nice. It's got a Marshall wiper motor in it, which is a little bit unusual for these. They usually have a Lucas motor. So it's a well-done car, and we hope to make it a little bit better. I'll turn you back to Dave here, who will take you through the rest of the shop.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. As Ryan pans over this way, we're going to show you the top floor. I guess we'd call this the West Wing. And here we have an Austin Hilly 3000, 1963. We've cared for this car for many years. We actually painted the coves red for the gentleman some years ago. And again, he usually says, okay, guys, let's fix it. Let's do it right. And this time he's thinking about maybe adding LED tail lamps, possibly a third brake light, and LED dash lights. I'm sure everybody's familiar with how much brighter they are as our vision gets a little challenged. That's the best way to say it. That certainly can help us when we're out at night, if we dare to do so with our Lucas electrical systems. But he's going to stop in tomorrow. We've got a list of tasks, and he'll approve some, I'm sure, and we'll move forward on this project. So come on in the back. Bill is uncovering a car that we're very proud of. As Ryan walks down the side of the Healy, a car I know a little bit about. This is a 1960 Triumph Italia. And this car is a sister car to my Italia that I've owned for 40-some years. This is finished in silver birch and Aston Martin color. And the interior is an oxblood red interior. And this car debuted at Amelia Island at the Concours in 2015. And I could be wrong, but I think it's won, I know it's won every Concours that it's been to since 2015. It's taken an award. And I believe it's been 16 or 18 awards since that time. It's here for a belated spring service because of everything that's happened recently. We're going through it. And we're going to try and get this car to run a little cooler. We're looking for a tropical fan for those Triumph enthusiasts out there who might know of one. Please get in touch. The 6-blade tropical fan is on our to-do list or to-get list for this car. It does help draw more air through the radiator. Again, Vignale coachwork, Triumph TR3, 329 cars built. We have restored 3 of them at this point, and we'll be showing one at the Greenbrier Concours Labor Day weekend. One of 2 Concours, I think, that have survived at this point in time. So hopefully we'll be down there with a cobalt blue car with a chestnut interior. So moving along here, Ryan will pan next across a Jaguar XJ, that XJS with a 6-cylinder. The 4-liter 6-cylinder is a great engine if you can get them in these cars. Now this is driver class car. The gentleman used to live in the Philadelphia area. He lives now a stone's throw from Canada up there by the lakes, the Thousand Islands. And he brought the car down for us to do our work to it. And the rear subframe, Ryan wants to pan down here to the left, is out and ready to go back in. We've rebuilt the differential, shock absorbers, diff seal, everything that goes along with the rebuild of the rear end in the Jaguar. It can be quite extensive. A lot of hours are put into that. And the car is in okay shape. It certainly could use some work towards the paint at some point. Gentleman loves the car. It is an automatic with a 6-cylinder, and these cars run forever. So hopefully he'll get some more enjoyment out of it, and we will get it back to him, and it'll be roadworthy once again. And coming around here, Ryan's going to move around slowly to a very interesting car. If you've seen any of our other Zooms, this car's been here for a while, but we're getting closer every day. This is a 1959 Mercedes 190. Now, the Mercedes 190 is a lovely car. Everybody's seen the value of these cars pop up in recent years, come down a little bit. The gentleman has tasked us with making this an automatic car. And if you notice, we've done quite a bit of surgery. In the trunk, we moved the battery to the trunk area. Well, why do you do that with an automatic? Well, what we did, and Ryan will come around here, the fuel pump has been mounted under the floor of the trunk area. You come around here, Ryan will show you the schematics, because this has been a ton of work. And we have put a 1993 Mercedes 190E automatic engine and transmission in the car. Let me work around here because I had asked to have something set up, but I don't see it. But nevertheless, this will have an automatic shifter from the 190E. We've had to do custom work, and I mean custom. We've had to reinvent the wheel on this. Fitting the transmission and engine has been no easy task. The whole transmission tunnel has been modified. The shift lever will mount on there. It's going to look very sharp. And the engine had to be fit into the frame, and the frame had to be modified. And Ryan will come up with a camera here shortly and show you just exactly what was done. And again, this is a proven drivetrain that came out of a running driving car. And you look at the loom, the wire loom. This is considerably less than it was 2 weeks ago. The engine management system will be living right here in this area. And that's why the battery moved into the trunk. We have modified the exhaust, the frame I mentioned earlier. And Ryan, I'm not sure if you can get down in here and show some of the custom motor mounts and everything that went with it. You've got to rethink everything from square one. Can't get down in there, but if you look down a little bit, it's quite intensive work that we've done to make this engine fit in here, and we're going to have fire in the cylinders in the next couple days or week. So hopefully this is going to be a very interesting ride. It's fitted with a compressor, a high output alternator, and it's going to have air conditioning as well. And we don't see another car like this being built out there, and it's going to be a very interesting ride when it's all said and done. Now, moving on, to your right and to my left is a 1970 Jaguar E-Type. And when the gentleman called me probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe more, he said the clutch was bad. And well, we realized the clutch was bad in 1974. We've repaired the clutch. We've had the engine out. We've done the mechanicals. We've gone through the entire car, suspensions, brakes, everything you need to make a safe car. It has a current inspection sticker here in PA. And now we fitted a beautiful new interior, nothing like a biscuit interior in a Jaguar. And we're working on seat belts and other fine details in the interior right now. We're going to move to another Jaguar here shortly. And next will be paint, possibly over the winter, or maybe he may drive it for a season, we'll see. And to my right, to your left, I'll be pointing this way to a cobalt blue, or a midnight blue, 1959, the Jaguar XK150, drop head coupe. Now, these are lovely cars if you've ever had the opportunity to drive one. The 3.4 liter engine makes ample power, and it does get up and go. If you read some of the reviews back in the day, I didn't read them at that time, but I've read them since. Everybody's always had some criticism of the Moss gearbox, but and that's why we sourced a 5-speed, and we fit a 5-speed, I believe, Tremec gearbox in this car. And it wasn't what they say on the website that it bolts in 8 hours. There was quite a bit of changes, modifications we had to cut. The tunnel, we had to cut a boss on the transmission itself so it would fit in. And we're just at the tail end of this project, and we're waiting for a gear shift lever that's more vertical than the one you see here in the car. So when you throw it from first to second gear, it's at the right angle. We will be making any modifications we need to do to the boot, and we'll be buttoning it up, putting some miles on it. And then the owner is located in Ithaca, New York, will be transporting it back to him. So that leads me to the east wing of Ragtops and Roadsters on the second floor. This Alfa Romeo has come in pretty regularly over the last 10 years, 15 years. The owner, again, is very, very concerned about keeping them up with the maintenance. And the GTV is a great car and has recently really appreciated. This is a 1974 GTV, and the owner's having us repair a pinhole leak in the radiator. We're doing, we did new plugs, oil, filter, and just go over it mechanically. I think some other work was also on the order, but it's in for its spring go over, and this will be wrapped up pretty shortly. Moving down further, this brings us to a 1966 Jaguar E-Type fixed head coupe. This car came in, and it had a serious collision with something. Something was dropped on it, like in an industrial situation, on the rear left corner, and pushed this whole corner of the car in. I mean, 4 or 5 inches. It wasn't a dent. It was a compromise of the original integrity of the car. All this work was done at our sister shop, Pollock Auto Restoration in Pottstown. And they brought it back to where it needs to be, a very light skim coat paint. It'll need its final buff. It's here for some mechanical sorting. One of the problems that we encountered with this car is the clutch was seized, and we tried the rather aggressive driving procedure, if everybody knows what that is, with no success. We had to pull the engine and separate the gearbox from the engine and put a new pressure plate, clutch disc, you know, go over the flywheel. Now, when we finish this up mechanically in a couple of weeks, it will then, excuse me, go out to Pottstown, to a Pollock, and they'll do the biscuit interior, refit the glass and the trim. The bonnet's already in finished paint, and pretty much bring the car together. It may come back here for some final tuning in the end, but at this point in time, it's coming along nicely, and I think it's pretty close to being made to run after the clutch. Now, if you were at any of our other Zoom tech sessions, we had one with the Morgan Club a month or so ago. And this car occupied 3 spaces in the shop because before we broke for approximately 8 weeks with COVID, we had just taken the body off the original frame. And the body was sitting where the Alpha was, and the original frame was sitting where this MG was. And the new frame, built by Ratco in Long Island, was sitting here on 4 jack stands. So it sat that way for 6 or 8 weeks. And we finally pulled it all together. It has a brand new Ratco frame. And right now we're waiting for just a couple trim pieces. We'll be driving it. The The interior transmission tunnel still has to be put in because we want to drive it and proof it, make sure everything's good. We'll install the interior. Let me see if I can get this bonnet open here. Hang on just a second. We have, it's hard to do when you're holding a microphone. Oh, wait, here we go. I'm not sure if we can show you anything of the frame. This is a car powered by 2 downdraft Weber carburetors. But if you can get a shot in there, the frame is fabulous. It's 2 to 3 times stronger than the original Triumph frame. And we're all eager to test drive this and see how it feels because it should be much more stiffer than a Triumph TR6 frame and should outlast all of us. The construction is very impressive with the Ratco frames. They sell for about $5,000, and Ratco is located in Long Island. And if you Google Ratco, you can find out all the information you need about their frames. So we're just in the final phases of this project. So I'm going to come back up here, hand the mic to Bill. Right? It's Bill. It's not Mike.
It is Bill.
It's Bill.
It was
Bill.
Mike earlier.
It was Mike earlier, but now you're Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And Ryan's going to pan past this midget, and Bill's going to talk a little bit about it.
This is the second MG project we're going to talk about tonight. This is a 79 MG midget. Belongs to a local physician who originally had purchased another MG midget that was just too far gone in every aspect. It was rusted out. It was mechanically unsound, and he brought it here. We sort of advised him that he needed to get another car. So he did get this car, which is actually very solid, very straight car, but it had some engine issues. The 1500 engine, the Triumph engine that's in this later model midget, came to us with a rod knock and extremely low oil pressure. We started the engine up, and besides the knock, when it was cold, it had about 18 or 20 psi of oil pressure. As it warmed up, the oil pressure went down to about 4 and didn't get any higher. Okay. So we opened up the bottom end and looked at the bearings, and sure enough, they were wiped. So we pulled the engine, stripped it down, sent it out to a machine shop that we use locally, who went through everything, did a complete rebuild on it, resurfaced the flywheel, put a new clutch in it. And we've since put it back together. It actually fired up for the first time today, successfully. Good oil pressure, good sounding engine. We're working on a few gremlins right now, just a couple little leaks. There are a couple coolant leaks that we need to resolve, and we'll do some tuning on it, and it'll be ready to return to the customer.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for your commentary on that. Of course, we used Moss Motors for the parts when we were in parts for this car, didn't we?
We did.
Kelvin, you out there? Did you hear that? Very good. So I'm going to walk ahead of Ryan, I believe, and we're going to just open the floor. And Mike, if you can open everybody's mic, if anybody has any questions, we're here to entertain them before we go downstairs to the first floor. Somebody's got to ask a question.
Hey, Dave, somebody. Can you hear me? It's Russ.
Russ, how are you, Russ?
I'm good. So why does that TR6 look like it's set up for off-road?
Why does the TR6 look like it's for off-road? You mean you feel the body is sitting high?
Yeah.
Well, it's yet to be out on the road. There might be some settling with the springs to be had. I'm looking at, I can agree with you a little bit, but it hasn't been driven. Hopefully it'll settle a little bit.
Is all the suspension components new on it?
What we did is we rebuilt and replaced what was needed as needed. So we've done maintenance on this car over the years, and I think we had rebuilt the front end, and it didn't need that to be done. But we went over the back end, we ran over everything. I don't think we replaced the springs on the car. And as I said, we'll drive it a bit, and hopefully it settles. Any other questions? That's a Triumph question coming from an MG guy. Thank you, Russ. There's a dog barking. He may have a question.
I don't speak dog.
Okay. All right, Mike, if you would mute the field. We're going to walk downstairs. We're going to show you some more cars and talk about the Moss Supercharger. Here we go. This building was built in the early 1900s. Was a moving and storage facility. And the first floor that we just toured is rated for over 90 tons. And if you notice, every jack has a metal plate welded to the bottom of it so it doesn't dig into the wood. Typically, we can have 10 cars upstairs and 10 cars downstairs. This is a 1937 Riley Special. I've had the honor and pleasure of driving this car. It's not a car you want to sneeze or scratch your nose when you're driving it. It is a bit skittery, but the gentleman who owns this loves the spiritedness of this car. And we're rebuilding the front end right now, the suspension up front, and we've done quite a bit of engine work to this over the years and kept it in good repair for him. Again, a 1930 Riley Special, 1937 Riley Special. It's a handful. So we're gonna walk over here quickly to the back of the shop, then come forward and talk more about some of the MG things that we have here. Come on down. We're gonna go all the way to the back corner, and we're gonna talk more about the Supercharger as we go past here. Bill, can you kill the music? All right, there we go. We got it. So we're going to just go buy this, but we're going to come back to the Supercharger shortly. Let's see. What do we have under this cover, Bill? Oh yeah, I remember. Thank you. This is a 1961 or 59. Hang on a second. 59, I'm sorry. 59. Another Mercedes 190. This car, I picked this car up in the DC. And when I loaded it on the trailer, I noticed that the proportions looked odd. I've seen a number of 190s over the years, and it looked a little wider in the rear. It just didn't look right, you know, when you look at something. Well, we got it to our sister shop, Pollock in Pottstown, and we started stripping the paint off, and we found that it had 3 layers of slap patches. Everybody know what slap patches are, where someone repairs the rust, then they tack on a piece and fill it with mud and do it. That was done 3 times. So it actually had extended the proportions to the car, and it kind of looked a little strange. We got it down to bare metal. We have fixed it right. No slap patches, all butt welding, grinding, and all taken care of. The engine was built by a Mercedes specialist on the West Coast. It's a 200 series engine. It's going to give it a little more power, and if you notice, it is powered by twin side draft Webers. The original configuration, I think, was a single Solex, and anybody who's ever driven a 190 knows that they're not long on power. They're wonderful little touring cars, but not a sports car to say that they have the power that a MG or a Triumph has. This has been an extensive project, and it's being fitted with air conditioning, a high output alternator, a navigation system that's built into a custom console, custom interior, and all this was done at our sister shop. We've done the mechanicals as far as the engine goes, and we'll get it out on the road. Right now we're having an issue with the carburetors, brand new Spanish-built Webers, but the butterflies are seizing on us, and we've got to investigate that to get that running more smoothly. So nice work from these guys out of Pollock. They do a great job as they do the lion's share of the interior and the paint work for the entire operation. Now, does anybody know what the folks who drive Rolls Royces say when the car doesn't work? Does anybody? Any hands up, Mike? Anybody hands up? Nobody. Well, the Rolls Royce people, their cars never break down. They just fail to proceed. And this particular car did not fail to proceed. It came in under its own power. And it's actually a pretty nice car. We've gone over it, and it's a solid car. It's been kept inside. It's been resprayed at one point, but the interior is very nice. The wood's in good shape, and a very usable driver. However, the brakes, anybody knows anything about Rolls-Royce brakes, they can, well, let's just say they can be a lot of time and a lot of effort to do them properly. Rolls-Royce is big in redundancy. And if you look up here in the front, you'll see where it has two calipers on the front brakes. It has two accumulators and a pump. And we right now diagnosed that we think both accumulators are in need of rebuild and possibly the pump. We'll know more tomorrow. So our technician, Bill Dietrich, has been with us for many years, knows Rolls-Royce very well, and has been over this car. And we'll put some effort in making the brakes safe. Very common with these silver shadows that this happens. They use a special brake fluid, the mineral-based brake fluid. And we've done a number of the brake jobs on these silver shadows over the years. This is a 1967, an earlier one. But again, a very pretty car, nice car, and it'd be a nice driver. We'll get the brakes sorted out on it. All right. That brings me to my left and to your right as Ryan pans over. A 1974 Jaguar E-Type Series 3. This is the last year Jaguar brought the E-Type into the States. And this has been a long-term project for a good client of ours out on Long Island. And it's painted in a dark, like a cobalt blue. And it has the original interior in it. And we've done some mechanical work on it. And he's now commissioned us to put the Euro spec bumpers on these cars. Everybody remembers what the 74s looked like with the big rubber bumpers in the back here. So we're fitting up Euro spec bumpers. We'll do that on the rear and the front. The paint needs to be cut one more time and polished one more time, I'm sure. It's been a while since we painted it. And then we'll sort out some of the mechanicals and we'll proceed from there. Moving on is a beautiful Lotus Elite, one of my favorite cars in the shop. This car is the third Lotus Elite that was imported into the States. The special thing about the Lotus Elite, for those of you who don't know, these cars were built on fiberglass. 3 layups of fiberglass brought these cars together. And the suspension is mounted on anchors, if you will, embedded in the fiberglass. They were great. They were light, 1,400 pounds, 100 plus horsepower, depending on the carburation. And they're very spirited cars. The Elite had a drag coefficient, still does, of 0.027, which is a respectable number today. What we've done to this car is we pulled the engine. They use MGA gearboxes, and the second gear was shot in this. Pulled the gearbox apart, getting hard to find parts for those, rebuilt the gearbox, put the engine back in, sealed, resealed what we needed to do. We've also replaced the seals on both the front and rear glass in the car. And we'll go over and sort through the car, make sure the brakes are good before it gets delivered to the client. Moving right along is another Series 3 Jaguar. And I tell people who don't own these cars that if you buy one of these, it can be very, very labor intensive. It's a 12-cylinder engine. This car came to us with, I think, a 36,000 miles, something like that on it. Not a lot of mileage, but the oil pressure was very bad, and the whole engine needed to be rebuilt. Quite an extensive project. We're going to freshen up some things in the interior. We'll be mating the engine to the automatic gearbox and putting it back in here shortly and making it run. We've done some cosmetic work on the valve covers and on the intakes to make it aesthetically look good. And as I said, we'll do some cleanup work on the engine bay. 2 more here, and then I'm going to turn you back to Bill, who's going to talk about some of the MG projects. This Lotus Elan, a new customer, was just purchased by him, I think, about a month ago, and brought to the shop for an inspection, a safety inspection. We found that the Rotoflex, thank you. The Rotoflex couplers, they used 4 of them on the back of the Lotus. One of them was almost sheared in half. And the car actually came with 4 Rotoflex couplers. So maybe that was known that it was going to happen, but nevertheless, everybody's happy. We're going to put new Rotoflex couplers in it. It needs tires at some point. It needs some other mechanical things to be looked over, but it's a very spirited ride, and it has a performance engine that was rebuilt just recently, and a great little car. that is going to be even better once we take care of some of the things. It's just outstanding. It needs mechanical attention. All right, last but not least for me is a 1949 Triumph 2000. These are glorious cars. These are stately, if you will. They were never actually imported here to the States. I don't believe they were. Triumph didn't become active until the 50s with the Triumph TR2. But that's a handsome looking front end, and the local collector bought this at an auction, and sometimes we see them come in where they need mechanical work, and this one certainly did. We went over the brakes. We're waiting for some tie rod ends, I believe, from the UK. Semaphore signals, wood dash, and the unique thing about this car is that it is a four-place car. We have the seat pulled out now, big bench seat, and Bill's going to give me a hand with this. You can pull open the boot, and you can raise up the glass, and you can put your foot on the top of the bumper here. And if you look in the back here, it becomes a four-place car with the two little jump seats that can be pulled back and set up. So it's kind of cool in that respect that I don't think you call it a mother-in-law seat, but you can certainly take a couple kids with you if you wanted to. And it's a fun ride, I'm sure. So we're looking forward to getting this done. And the gentleman's going to bring us a London taxi next for us to go over. So at this point in time, I'm going to turn you over to Bill, who's going to talk about 3 MGs we have here. First being this TF that's taking a long trip on a boat, I think, right?
It is.
Here we go.
It is. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, this car is a 54 MGTF, and the owner lives in Hawaii. He's got family here in this area. His brother-in-law began a refurbishment for him and reached a point where he needed a little professional help to finish the job. So he brought it to us, and we've done quite a bit of work on this. We've done extensive electrical work. We've gone through all the wiring, all the lighting. The brakes have all been gone over. The dashboard has been refinished. The interior, the seats were already done, but our sister shop, Pollock Auto Restoration, did the top and and refinished the top frame. We put new floorboards in the car. What else have we done to this? Just about everything mechanical. We did not do any deep engine work. We fixed some oil leaks. We did some tuning on the engine, but the engine itself was pretty sound. We did the radiator. The radiator was serviced. So we've done quite a bit of work on this car. This is a car that we have gotten kind of fond of here, and I think it's gotten fond of us because it doesn't seem to want to leave. But it's just about done. We're just working on a few fine points. We'll do our QC and final inspection on it, do some test driving, and we'll get it out the door. 54 TF, one of my personal favorite MGs, and this one is actually a pretty nice one. Behind the TF is a 76 MGB, which, as you can see, is a little ragged. This car needs a lot of TLC. The owner brought it to us because, and Ryan will show you here as he pans over, the windshield was smashed. The car was not running when we got it. The brakes were not functional, and the windshield was smashed. He was looking for a shop who was able and willing to replace the windshield. And if you folks shop around, you'll realize that replacing an MGB windshield is no small task. If you tried it yourself, it's a challenge. But we're up to it. We've done it here before, and we're going to do this one again. When we finish that up, the car is drivable. It will go back to the owner, and it's going to become a father and son work project. So I'm sure they'll have many hours of father and son bonding on this car. While we're on the subject of windscreens, let me draw your attention over here. Ragtops and Roadsters and Pollock Auto Restoration has a service where we can convert a standard MGA windscreen into a low-cut racing style windscreen. We take your MGA windscreen or one that you can supply to us, or we can supply it for you. We cut the frame down. We supply a perspex or plexiglass window in it. It makes the MGA into a whole different looking car. Yeah, good looking car. Before we get to the pièce de résistance, let me look at a couple other MG projects that we have going here. We'll give Ryan just a moment to come over. This green MGB is sort of a favorite of mine. If you'll notice, this is a pull handle car. For you guys that are familiar with these, this is a very early car. Interestingly enough, this car is a 1965 model. If you know your MGBs, you'll know that the pull handle was really only available in 63 and 64. But this car was built in October of 1964, titled as a 1965. So it's got some early features and some slightly later features. Something else it does have, it's got an upgraded engine. It's got a 1968 engine in, so it's got a 5-main engine. It's got a 1968 gearbox, so it's got a 4-synchro gearbox in it. And it's just a sweet little car. I've driven it several times. It's very tight, very nimble, and it's really what an MGB should be. It came to us for a safety inspection, some going over. There were some running issues. The owner was having difficulty starting the car when it was hot. We checked out the carburetors, did a little bit of work with the fuel mixture, and now the car is running pretty sweetly.
We're bouncing Ryan around a little bit here.
We are, but he likes it. On the floor over here, we've got an MGB rear end and an MGB front end. These are out of a 1975 MGB, which is currently residing in a local body shop. It was brought to us by a customer who wants to have the car restored and give it to his daughter. It was a project that he and his daughter worked on briefly, and he is now working on restoring the car. And he really, it's a labor of love for him, so he really wants us to go through the entire car. We've rebuilt the rear axle from hub to hub. We have the front suspension out. You can see it's got new shocks on. There's new bushings in the A-arms. So we've rebuilt the front end. We'll be putting fresh spindles and kingpins in it. Then all that will go back in the car. We have an engine, which is, again, at our machine shop being rebuilt. And so when this car is all done at the body shop and with our mechanical work, and once we reinstall the rebuild engine, it'll be like a brand new MGB. Okay, I want to bring you over here to this workbench and show you this. This is an MGB supercharger system supplied by Moss Motors. This is the complete kit, and as you can see by looking at the equipment that's on the table, it really is a complete kit. You've got throttle and choke cables. You've got all the hoses necessary, vacuum lines, cooling lines, drive belts, hardware, and cable ties and so forth. Even comes with a cooler set of spark plugs. It's got the blower itself with the carburetor. The intake manifold is attached to it. There's a alternator that goes with it, water pump, all the bracketry to mount it up, all the pulleys and gaskets to go with it. It's quite a complete package. Before I talk too much about this, We have a guest here tonight, Kelvin Dodd. I don't.
We might add some things, sure.
Yeah.
Mike,
Mike, can you unmute Kelvin? Can we get Kelvin on the hook here?
You already got me unmuted. I'm online.
He'd let me know if he's there. Okay.
I'm live.
Kelvin, what can you tell us about this supercharger? We've done a couple of these, and what Bill didn't mention, this is going on into an MGB engine that's going in an AC Hawk. That's an AC Hawk Cobra. It's a Cobra replica built in England, and a very nice car, fiberglass car, originally fitted with an MGB engine. The gentleman wanted a little more power, so we chose this more supercharger. So the engine will be back from our machine shop. We'll build that shortly and fit this to the engine. We'll do some cleanup under the bonnet, and it's going to be a very spirited ride. Kelvin, what kind of horsepower increase can he get in this?
Typically, you're looking at about a 40% increase in power. A lot of it depends.
About 40%?
About 40%.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's an honest 40%.
Well,
that's not just numbers, right, Kelvin?
Pardon? Well, it's not a dishonest 40%.
Okay. I have driven the Triumph TR250 we're going to show you in a minute, and I can attest it's a very spirited ride. What I like about the supercharging is that it's relatively docile when you're just driving around town. Mm-hmm. You stick your foot in it, it's progressive and linear, and the tachometer moves very quickly. I guess you'd say the same, Kelvin, right?
Well, the nice thing is that it improves the torque, the low-end torque on the engine tremendously. So around town driving, you just have a lot more bottom end. It's very similar to driving a V6 powered vehicle rather than a 4-cylinder. So I was sold.
I'm sorry?
I said I was sold on these. I have 2 supercharged MGs.
Do you?
Yeah. Excellent.
Well, we're looking forward to getting the MGB engine back from the shop and fitting this to the engine, and then we'll be installing it into the Cobra. So what I'm going to do is Ryan's going to come out here now to the outside of the shop, and one of our clients was nice enough to drive up here, and we actually installed this supercharger back in 2007, right, Jim? 2007, 13 years ago. And Kelvin, I think you might have been at that VTR in Valley Forge. We had a great time. And if you come around here on that side, you can see the supercharger. That has given Jim a lot of smiles. Prior to the supercharger, Jim did not smile much at all. I've known him for many years. But once we put the supercharger in the car, he smiles a lot more now. As you can see, a different water pump is fitted. I believe the alternator is changed as well. Kelvin, is that correct?
It'll run the standard alternator. The water pumps changed because we needed to put a V-rib, a multi-rib belt pulley onto the water pump. So we ended up taking a Triumph TR6 water pump, taking off the standard pulley and pressing on an MGB pulley flange. So it's a standard, TR250 TR6 water pump, but with an MGB flange mounted on it rather than the original pulley.
Very good, very good. Thank you. And I believe the carburetor in this is certainly not an SU. The early run, what carburetors were on these?
These are running a Holley 2-barrel. At the time that we designed this, the Weber DGV, which was an alternate carburetor we were looking at, was no longer available. The tooling had disappeared. So we were kind of thrown because we needed a bigger carburetor. The SU HD8 carburetor was not available at the time, and the DGV was gone. So we looked at a Holley 2-barrel carburetor, which is what you see there.
Yes. And Jim, how many miles would you say you put on this since we did this conversion for you? About 15,000. It's been running very reliably for you. Yeah, no problems in 15,000 miles. We had to put an electric fuel pump on it. I remember that. Yep. Right. So we did put a second fuel pump on it at one point. Why don't you fire it up for us, Jim? I want to thank Jim for coming out tonight and bringing this Supercharged TR250. It ran so well that he came back and said, I got to go faster, and we ended up putting a Toyota 5-speed in it. So, as you can see, it progresses up the range pretty quickly, and it's a very, very spirited ride.
Hey, Dave, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
What kind of effect does this have on fuel economy?
What kind of effect does it have on fuel economy? Well,
It drinks gas.
it drinks gas. Jim just said it drinks gas.
Small gas tanks to start with, so if you drop it down to like 15 miles per the gallon, you're not going to have a lot of range anymore.
Well, I'm not
answer-
sure Jim's taking long trips with the car. Some, but you know, usually if you're asking about gas mileage, you're probably an MG driver.
That's because we already have all the power we need, right?
Russ.
But
Russ,
it's certainly worth it. From my experience driving this car, you can drive it easily, and I'm sure you can conserve fuel and not have to have it drink gas as quickly. But if you want to have fun, it costs money. So you got to play to pay. Exactly. So
Hey, Dave,
I think at this point in time, I'd like to open up the floor again with any other questions anybody may have.
Dave, I've got an answer for Russ.
Say again?
I said I have an answer for Russ on fuel mileage.
Go ahead.
The MG application uses an SU carburetor. It doesn't have an accelerator pump, which means that it's a lot more progressive than the TR250 TR6 setup, which does go through gas if you get on it. With the MGB application, I'm actually getting better fuel mileage than I did with twin SUs.
Oh, good. Good to hear. So you can have fun and get better gas mileage at the same time.
No,
with an MG.
If you drive it normally, you get better gas mileage. If you're going to be on
Excellent.
it will use more fuel.
Right. We had this engine dynoed at 165 horsepower, which is pretty impressive. And as with any engine, if you're going to drive it in a docile manner and take it easy, and that's good to hear that you actually get better gas mileage with the supercharger than without. That's good to hear, Kelvin.
You get a lot better fuel mixture with the single carburetor and the supercharger than you do with a pair of SU carburetors.
Right. Cool. Any other questions? Any other comments, folks?
I've got a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Do you recommend getting these older engines rebuilt before you do this to them?
Kelvin, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so long as the engine's in decent shape and the valves are seating well, you can put this on a regular engine. The test mule 1973 MGB that we used, it had 140,000 miles on the motor. We went in, refreshed we put in new rod bearings, rings, tappets, and gave the head a valve job. That's all we did to the motor. And that engine stayed together for about 7 years of people doing test driving with it.
That's great.
So it doesn't, you don't have to have a special engine, and you don't have to spend a lot of money making a perfect, rebuild, as long as the engine's in decent condition. My 1970 MGB, the engine had been rebuilt to stock about 10,000 miles ago.
Pick up some of it.
And it's been running fine for 10 years now.
And we've been told that you want to do a stock rebuild. You don't want to put a cam in it. You don't want to increase the compression ratio. The superchargers work best with stock configurations, correct, Kelvin?
A slightly raised camshaft can help a little bit, but the whole idea is that you're spending a lot of money for a supercharger, but you don't have to spend a lot of money for a custom engine build. So if you just do a stock engine build and then bolt the supercharger on, you're going to end up with the best bang for the buck.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks again, Kelvin. Appreciate it. Anybody else have any other questions? None? Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This is the end of our tour this evening. I want to thank Bill Boris, our assistant manager, who is here with us with the MGs and his passion in MGs. We want to thank Jim Scanlon, who came up with his supercharged TR250, and the entire staff. And out front, Sally and Andy Benton brought their MGB GT that you saw, the yellow car with the V6. And at this point in time, if there's no other questions, we're going to conclude the program. Thanks for Zooming with us.
Thank
Take
you.
care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.